Unexpected encounter. The vast emptiness of space stretched out before Commander Zach Hawkins as he piloted his small exploration vessel, the Star Seeker, through an uncharted sector of the galaxy. His mission was simple: scout new worlds, gather data, and report back to Earth. But as he'd learned over his years as a deep space explorer, nothing in the cosmos was ever truly simple. A sudden alarm blared through the cockpit, jolting Zach from his thoughts. He scanned the readouts, his experienced eyes quickly assessing the situation. "Damn it," he muttered, seeing the fluctuating energy readings. The Starseeker was caught in some kind of gravitational anomaly, pulling the ship off course and towards a nearby planet. Zach's hands flew over the controls, attempting to compensate, but it was no use. The unknown force grew stronger, overriding his commands and dragging the Starseeker into a rapid descent. The ship shuddered violently as it breached the planet's atmosphere, warning lights flashing across every console. "Come on, baby," Zach urged his vessel, fighting for control as the ground rushed up to meet him. "Just hold together a little longer." With a bone-jarring impact, the Starseeker slammed into the alien's surface, skidding across barren terrain before coming to rest against a rocky outcropping. For a moment, all was silent save for the hiss of cooling metal and the faint crackle of electrical shorts. Zach groaned, shaking his head to clear the fog of impact. He ran a quick self-assessment, bruised, battered, but miraculously in one piece. The same couldn't be said for his ship. A quick glance at the systems showed multiple failures across the board. He wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. With a sigh, Zach unstrapped himself and made his way to the airlock. The ship's sensors indicated a breathable atmosphere outside, but he still donned his protective suit before cycling the door open. No sense in taking unnecessary risks on an unknown world. As Zach stepped onto the alien soil, he was struck by the desolate beauty of the landscape. Rolling hills of deep purple stone stretched to the horizon, broken only by jutting crystalline formations that sparkled under the light of twin suns. The sky above was a pale lavender, streaked with wispy clouds that seemed to glow from within. "Well," Zach said to himself, his voice tinny through the suit's speakers, "at least I picked a scenic spot to crash." He began a perimeter check of the Starseeker, assessing the damage. The hull was battered but intact, which was a small miracle. The main problem appeared to be the engines and power core. Whatever strange energy had pulled him in had wreaked havoc on the ship's systems. As Zach circled to the far side of his vessel, he froze. There, rising from the purple stone like the skeleton of some great beast, were the unmistakable remains of a structure. Not a natural formation, but something built by intelligent hands. "No way," Zach breathed, his heart racing. He'd explored dozens of worlds, but never had he encountered evidence of an advanced alien civilization. This was the discovery of a lifetime. Torn between staying with his ship and investigating the ruins, Zach's curiosity won out. He grabbed his survey kit and began making his way towards the alien structure. As he drew closer, he could see that the building was constructed of a material unlike anything he'd encountered before. It seemed to shimmer and shift, as if not quite solid. The entrance to the structure was a gaping maw of darkness. Zach hesitated for a moment before steeling himself and stepping inside. His suit's lights automatically activated, illuminating a vast chamber filled with what could only be described as alien technology. Consoles lined the walls, their surfaces covered in strange, swirling symbols. In the center of the room stood a towering pillar of pulsing energy, bathing everything in a soft, blue glow. "This is incredible," Zach muttered, fumbling for his data recorder. He began documenting everything he saw, knowing that even if he never made it off this planet, this information could change humanity's understanding of the universe. As he moved deeper into the structure, Zach's sensors began picking up unusual energy readings. They seemed to be coming from further within the ruins, growing stronger with each step he took. The rational part of his mind urged caution, but the explorer in him pushed forward, drawn by the promise of discovery. Rounding a corner, Zack entered what appeared to be some kind of control room. The energy readings were off the charts here, emanating from a pulsing orb suspended in the center of the chamber. He approached it slowly, mesmerized by its swirling colors. "Absolutely fascinating," he said, reaching out a gloved hand towards the orb. "I wonder what?" "Stop," a voice cried out, causing Zack to nearly jump out of his suit. He whirled around to find himself face to face with a creature that was undeniably alien, yet hauntingly beautiful. The being before him was tall and slender, with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors like the surface of a soap bubble. Large, almond-shaped eyes regarded him with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The alien's features were delicate, almost elfin, framed by what looked like living tendrils of silver that moved of their own accord. For a moment, neither moved, each regarding the other with equal parts wonder and wariness. Then the alien spoke again, its voice melodious despite the clear tension in its words. "You must not touch the nexus," it said, gesturing towards the pulsing orb. "Its energies are unstable, dangerous to those who do not understand." Zack's mind reeled. Not only had he encountered an alien, but one that spoke his language. "I am sorry," he stammered. "I didn't mean any harm. I'm Zack Hawkins, an explorer from Earth. My ship crashed and I found these ruins. Do you live here?" The alien's expression softened slightly, though wariness remained in its eyes. "I am Vyra, last of the Etheri. This world was once our home, but now I am all that remains." The sadness in Vyra's voice was palpable, and Zack felt a surge of empathy despite the strangeness of the situation. "What happened?" he asked gently. Vyra moved further into the room, graceful despite the clear weight of sorrow she carried. "Our people grew too ambitious, too hungry for power. We sought to harness the energy of the Nexus, to use it to fuel our expansion across the stars. But we did not understand the forces we tampered with." As Vyra spoke, the room around them seemed to come alive. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing images of a once great civilization. Zack saw towering cities of crystal and light, ships that sailed between the stars, and technology beyond his wildest imagination. "The Nexus was not meant to be controlled," Vyra continued, her gaze fixed on the swirling orb. "When we pushed too far, it reacted. The energy we sought to harness turned against us, devastating our world and our people. Those who survived fled to the stars, leaving me behind to guard what remains, to ensure our mistake is never repeated." Zack's mind raced with the implications of what he was hearing. A civilization capable of interstellar travel, brought low by its own hubris. The story felt all too familiar, a warning that humanity would do well to heed. "I'm so sorry," Zack said, struggling to find words adequate for the scale of tragedy Vyra described. "To lose everything like that, I can't imagine." Vyra turned to him, her alien features unreadable. "And now you are here, drawn by the same energies that doomed my people. Tell me, Zack Hawkins of Earth, what do you intend to do with this knowledge you have stumbled upon?" The question hung in the air between them, charged with potential. Zack knew that what he decided here could change not only his own fate, but potentially that of his entire species. The technology in these ruins, the power of the Nexus, in the wrong hands, it could be catastrophic. "I'm a scientist, an explorer," Zack said slowly, choosing his words with care. "My mission is to learn, to understand, not to conquer or exploit. The power here, it's beyond anything we've ever encountered. But from what you've told me, it's not something to be trifled with." He took a deep breath, making a decision that he hoped he wouldn't regret. "I won't lie. Part of me wants to study all of this, to try and unlock its secrets. But I've seen enough sci-fi movies to know how that usually ends up. If you're willing, I'd like to learn from you, Vyra. To understand your people's history, their mistakes, so that maybe, when humanity reaches this level of technology, we don't repeat them." Vyra regarded him silently for a long moment, her alien eyes seemingly peering into his very soul. Then, to Zack's surprise, her features softened into what he thought might be a smile. "You are wise for one so young," she said. "Your words give me hope, Zach Hawkins. Perhaps your people will succeed where mine failed." A tremor suddenly shook the chamber, causing dust to rain down from the ceiling. The nexus pulsed erratically, its glow intensifying. "What's happening?" Zach asked, alarmed. Vira's expression turned grim. "The nexus grows more unstable with each passing cycle. Your arrival, the energy of your ship, it has accelerated the process. We must leave this place, now." As if to emphasize her point, a section of the ceiling collapsed, nearly crushing them. Zach didn't need to be told twice. He and Vira raced through the crumbling ruins, dodging falling debris and leaping over widening chasms in the floor. They burst out into the open air just as the structure behind them imploded, collapsing in on itself with a deafening roar. A shockwave of energy rolled out across the landscape, kicking up a storm of purple dust. As the dust settled, Zach and Vera stood side by side, panting from their narrow escape. The ruins that had stood for millennia were now nothing more than a smoking crater. "Well," Zach said, trying to inject some levity into the situation, "I guess that's one way to ensure the technology doesn't fall into the wrong hands." Vira turned to him, her alien features a mix of emotions Zach couldn't quite decipher. "The danger is not past," she said gravely. "The collapse of the ruins will only accelerate the Nexus's instability. This entire world may soon become uninhabitable." Zach's mind raced, considering their options. His ship was damaged, possibly beyond repair. Even if he could get it working, he couldn't just leave Vira here to die. And the thought of all that knowledge, that history, being lost forever, it was unthinkable. "Then we work together," he said, determination settling over him like a mantle. "You know this world, this technology. I've got skills and knowledge from a completely different perspective. Between the two of us, maybe we can find a way to stabilize the Nexus, or at least buy enough time to get off this rock." Vira studied him for a long moment, then nodded. "Very well, Zach Hawkins of Earth. It seems fate has bound our paths together. Let us hope that the combined knowledge of our peoples is enough to avert catastrophe." As they made their way back towards the Starseeker, Zach couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and trepidation. He had come seeking new worlds and scientific discovery. Instead, he found himself in a race against time, paired with the last survivor of an alien civilization, trying to prevent a disaster that could consume an entire planet. It was, he reflected wryly, just another day in the life of a deep space explorer. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Zach was determined to face them head-on. With Vira's ancient wisdom and his human ingenuity, they just might stand a chance of surviving this unexpected encounter and unlocking the secrets of this mysterious world. Echoes of a lost world. As the twin suns of the alien world dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the desolate landscape, Zach and Vera huddled around a makeshift workstation near the damaged Starseeker. The ship's external lights illuminated their workspace, creating a small island of activity in the encroaching darkness. "Pass me the hyperspanner," Zach mumbled, his head buried deep in an access panel. Vira hesitated, her iridescent fingers hovering over the array of Earth tools spread before her. "The one that looks like a twisted metal stick," Zach clarified, his voice muffled. Vira selected the correct tool and handed it to him. "Your technology is so primitive," she observed, not unkindly, "yet surprisingly effective." Zach emerged from the panel, a smudge of grease on his forehead. "Hey, this primitive tech got me across half the galaxy. Though I guess it's not much use now," he added ruefully, glancing at the battered hull of his ship. "Perhaps not," Vera agreed, her silver tendrils swaying gently in the alien breeze. "But your adaptability, your, what do you call it? McGivering? It is most impressive." Zach couldn't help but grin. In the week since their narrow escape from the collapsing ruins, he and Vira had fallen into an unlikely but effective partnership. Her vast knowledge of ethery technology combined with his human ingenuity had already yielded promising results. Speaking of impressive, Zack said, wiping his hands on a rag, how's our little project coming along? Vira's expression brightened, or at least Zack thought it did. He was still learning to read her alien features. The integration of your ship's power core with the ethery energy matrix is proceeding well. If our calculations are correct, it should provide a temporary stabilizing effect on the Nexus. Temporary being the key word, Zack sighed. We're basically trying to plug a planet-sized leak with chewing gum and hope. I do not understand this chewing gum, Vera said, tilting her head in that endearing way she did when confronted with an Earth idiom. But your assessment is essentially correct. We are buying time, nothing more. Zack nodded, his expression turning serious. And we still don't know what effect it'll have on the environment, or those things we saw out there. Both of them involuntarily glanced towards the darkness beyond their camp. 3 days ago, while scavenging parts from a nearby ethery ruin, they had encountered something that still haunted Zack's dreams. Creatures of living shadow, with too many limbs and eyes that glowed with an unholy light. They had barely escaped, and since then, both had felt the constant, unsettling sensation of being watched. The Void Stalkers, Vira said softly, a tremor in her melodious voice. They are a product of the Nexus's instability, corrupted life forms twisted by exposure to its raw energy. In the final days of my people, they'd overrun entire cities. Zack laid a comforting hand on Vira's shoulder, marveling at the strange, silky texture of her skin. Hey, we're not going to let that happen again. We'll figure this out. Vira placed her hand over his, her alien touch sending a shiver down his spine. Your optimism is admirable, Zack Hawkins. I only hope it is not misplaced. As if in response to her words, a distant howl echoed across the barren landscape, a sound that seemed to exist somewhere between frequencies, setting Zack's teeth on edge. Both of them tensed, eyes scanning the darkness. We should rest, Vera said after a moment, her voice tight. Tomorrow, we must venture to the echoing spires. The crystals there are crucial for the next phase of our stabilization efforts. Zack nodded, trying to ignore the knot of fear in his stomach. The echoing spires were a treacherous formation of crystalline towers, filled with deadfalls and unstable energy pockets. And if their previous excursions were any indication, it was likely to be crawling with Void Stalkers. As they prepared for sleep, taking turns to watch for any signs of danger, Zack found his thoughts drifting. He thought of Earth, so distant now, it might as well be in another universe. He thought of the mission that had brought him here, of the reports and data streams that would never reach his superiors. And he thought of Vera, the last of her kind, bearing the weight of an entire civilization's fall. In the quiet moments before sleep claimed him, Zack made a silent vow. Whatever it took, whatever sacrifices he had to make, he would find a way to save this world. Not just for his own survival, but for Vera, and for the legacy of the ethery. Humanity's first contact with an alien civilization wouldn't be a tale of conquest or destruction, but one of redemption and hope. As Zack drifted off, lulled by the alien sounds of the night, he was unaware of the pair of glowing eyes watching from just beyond the ring of light. The Void Stalker observed the sleeping humans with cold curiosity, its twisted form pulsing in time with the distant throb of the Nexus. Soon, it seemed to say. Soon. The next morning dawned crimson and gold, the twin suns painting the sky in hues that would have been breathtaking if not for the sense of foreboding that hung in the air. Zack and Vera broke camp efficiently, their movements honed by days of working together in the hostile environment. Remember, Vera said as they prepared to set out, her voice low and urgent. The echoing spires are not just a physical challenge. The crystals there resonate with the Nexus's energy. They can affect your mind, show you things that aren't real. Zack nodded grimly, checking the charge on his makeshift energy weapon, a hybrid of his Earth sidearm and ethery technology. Great. Deadly drops, Void Stalkers, and now hallucinations. Anything else I should know? Vira's expression was solemn. Only this: no matter what you see, no matter what you hear, trust in what is real. Trust in us. The intensity in her alien eyes made Zach's breath catch. He reached out, taking her hand in his. Always, he said softly. They set out across the purple stone desert, the echoing spires rising before them like the teeth of some great, slumbering beast. As they drew closer, Zach began to hear it. A faint, the song of the crystals, Vira explained, her own voice taking on a dreamy quality. It is said that in the early days, before the fall, ethereal artists would come here to compose symphonies of unparalleled beauty. Zach tried to focus on Vira's words, on the solidity of the ground beneath his feet, but the music was becoming more insistent. It warmed its way into his mind, conjuring images of earth, of home, of all he had left behind. For a moment, just a moment, the barren landscape shimmered and changed. Zach found himself standing in a lush forest, the trees reaching impossibly high into a sky of deepest blue. In the distance, he could see the gleaming spires of what must have been an ethereal city in its prime. Zach. Vira's voice cut through the illusion, sharp and urgent. He blinked, and the world snapped back into focus. He was teetering on the edge of a deep crevasse, mere inches from plummeting to his death. I'm okay, he gasped, stumbling back. Thanks. I see what you mean about the hallucinations. Vira steadied him, her touch grounding him in reality. The effects will only grow stronger as we get closer to the core. We must remain vigilant. They pressed on, picking their way through the twisted landscape of crystal and stone. The echoing spires lived up to their name, each step sending cascades of sound rippling through the air. It was beautiful, in a haunting, alien way, but Zach couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the maw of some great, patient predator. As they neared the central spire, a towering monolith of pulsing crystal, the air itself seemed to thicken. Motes of light danced at the edge of Zach's vision, and he found himself constantly checking to make sure Vira was still beside him, still real. There, Vira said suddenly, pointing to a cluster of smaller crystals near the base of the central spire. Those are the ones we need. Their resonance frequency is crucial for stabilizing the nexus. Zach nodded, relieved to have a concrete goal to focus on. All right, let's get them and get out of here. This place is starting to give me the creeps. But as they approached the crystal cluster, a shadow fell over them. Zach looked up, his blood running cold at what he saw. Perched atop the central spire was a void stalker, larger than any they had encountered before. Its body was a writhing mass of shadow and energy, with dozens of eyes that gleamed with malevolent intelligence. Vira, Zach whispered, his hand tightening on his weapon. Please tell me you see that too. Vira's voice was tight with fear. I see it. We must move quickly. If we can get the crystals, their energy might be enough to drive it back. They edged forward, every step measured and careful. The void stalker watched them, unmoving, but Zach could feel the weight of its gaze like a physical thing. The song of the crystals had risen to a fever pitch, making it hard to think, hard to focus on anything but the pounding rhythm that seemed to match his own frantic heartbeat. Just as they reached the crystal cluster, the void stalker made its move. It leaped from its perch with impossible speed, its form seeming to bend and twist in ways that hurt Zach's eyes to look at. He raised his weapon, firing off a burst of energy that passed harmlessly through the creature's shifting form. The crystals, Vera cried, already working to extract one from the cluster. Hurry. Zach dove for the crystals, his hands closing around one, just as the void stalker crashed into the ground where he had been standing. The crystal pulsed in his grasp, sending a shock of energy up his arm that cleared his mind like a bucket of cold water. Acting on instinct, Zach thrust the crystal towards the void stalker. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The creature recoiled as if struck, its form rippling and distorting. A high-pitched keening filled the air, a sound of rage and pain that set Zach's teeth on edge. It's working, he shouted to Vira, who was wielding her own crystal like a weapon. "We can drive it back." Together, they advanced on the Void Stalker, crystals held before them like shields. The creature retreated, its dozens of eyes flashing with what Zack could have sworn was fear. With a final, ear-splitting shriek, it turned and fled, dissolving into the shadows between the crystal spires. For a moment, Zack and Vera stood frozen, hardly daring to believe they had survived. Then, as the realization of their victory sank in, Zack let out a whoop of triumph. "We did it," he cried, turning to Vera with a grin that threatened to split his face. "We actually did it." Vera's expression was one of wonder and relief. "Yes," she said softly. "We did, together." In that moment, flushed with victory and the fading rush of adrenaline, Zack acted without thinking. He pulled Vera close and kissed her, a kiss born of joy and fear, and something deeper that he wasn't quite ready to name. For a heartbeat, Vera was still in his arms. Then, to Zack's amazement and delight, she returned the kiss, her alien lips soft and warm against his own. When they finally parted, both were breathless, staring at each other with a mixture of surprise and dawning understanding. I'm sorry," Zack stammered, suddenly unsure. "I didn't mean to." Vera placed a finger against his lips, silencing him. "Do not apologize, Zack Hawkins," she said, her voice warm with emotion. "Some things transcend the boundaries between worlds." As they made their way back through the echoing spires, crystals clutched safely in their arms, Zack felt a profound shift in his relationship with Vera. They had faced death together, had glimpsed the beauty and terror of her lost world, and had emerged stronger for it. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them as more than just allies. The Nexus still pulsed in the distance, a reminder of the monumental task that lay before them. But for now, as they walked side by side through the alien landscape, Zack allowed himself to hope. Hope for the future, hope for this strange, beautiful world, and hope for the unexpected connection he had found across the stars. Little did they know, their victory in the echoing spires was just the beginning. The true test of their newfound bond, and of humanity's place in the cosmic order, was yet to come. Whispers of the Void. The makeshift laboratory hummed with a fusion of Earth and ethery technology, a testament to the unlikely alliance forged between Zack and Vera. Holographic displays flickered with complex equations and pulsing energy signatures, while the crystals from the echoing spires glowed softly in their containment field. Zack wiped sweat from his brow, his eyes bloodshot from hours of intense concentration. "I think we've got it," he said, his voice a mixture of excitement and exhaustion. "If these calculations are right, we should be able to create a resonance field that will stabilize the Nexus, at least temporarily." Vera nodded, her silvery tendrils swaying with the movement. "Your human intuition continues to surprise me, Zack. Combining the crystalline matrices with your ship's quantum harmonizer was inspired." "Hey, sometimes you've got to think outside the box." Zack grinned, then chuckled at Vera's puzzled expression. Earth saying, "It means." A sudden tremor cut him off, sending equipment rattling across the workbench. Outside, the sky flashed an ominous shade of green. "The Nexus," Vera breathed, her alien features tightening with concern. "Its instability is growing. We must act now." Zack nodded grimly, all traces of levity vanishing. "All right, let's fire this baby up and hope it works." They moved in perfect synchronization, the result of days spent working side by side. Zack initiated the power-up sequence on the jury-rigged device they had christened the harmonic stabilizer, while Vera monitored the energy fluctuations. As the machine came to life, a low hum filled the air, quickly rising in pitch until it was just on the edge of hearing. The crystals pulsed in time with the rhythm, their glow intensifying. "Energy output stable," Vera reported, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Initiating resonance field in 3, 2, 1. A wave of invisible energy burst forth from the harmonic stabilizer, rippling across the landscape. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the sickly green tinge faded from the sky, replaced by its normal lavender hue. Zack held his breath, hardly daring to hope. Did it work? Vira's eyes were closed, her head tilted, as if listening to something only she could hear. Yes, she said finally, a smile of relief spreading across her face. The nexus is stabilizing. The resonance field is holding. Yes, Zack whooped, pumping his fist in the air. Without thinking, he swept Vira into an embrace, spinning her around in his excitement. She laughed, a sound like tinkling crystals that made Zack's heart soar. As he set her down, their eyes met, and for a moment, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Zack was acutely aware of how close they were, of the alien warmth of Vira's body against his. He leaned in, drawn by a force as inexorable as gravity. Their lips met, and this time there was no hesitation, no surprise. It was a kiss born of shared triumph, of fears faced together, of a connection that defied the vast gulfs of space and evolution that separated them. When they finally parted, both were breathless. Vira's skin shimmered with a soft, pulsing light that Zack was beginning to recognize as a sign of strong emotion. "Zack," she began, her voice trembling slightly. A piercing shriek cut through the air, shattering the moment. They turned as one, hearts racing, to see a sight that chilled them to the core. A void stalker stood at the edge of their camp, its writhing form more substantial than ever before, but it wasn't alone. Behind it, emerging from the shadows between realities, came more of the nightmarish creatures. Dozens of them. Hundreds. "No," Vira whispered, her voice thick with horror. "This is impossible. The stabilization should have driven them back." Zack's mind raced, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Then, with a sickening lurch of understanding, he realized their mistake. "The resonance field," he said, the words tasting like ashes in his mouth. "It didn't just stabilize the nexus. It created a bridge, a pathway for the void stalkers to fully manifest in our reality." Vira's eyes widened as the implications sank in. "We've doomed this world," she breathed. But Zack wasn't ready to give up. Not when they come so far, risked so much. "No," he said firmly, grabbing Vira's hand. "We started this, and we'll finish it. There has to be a way to reverse the effect, to send these things back where they came from." Vira hesitated for a moment, then nodded, resolve hardening her features. "You're right. We cannot give up now. But we'll need to reach the nexus itself. Only there will we have the power to undo what we've done." Zack glanced at the advancing horde of void stalkers, then back at Vira. "Well then," he said with a grim smile, "I guess we're in for one hell of a road trip." They worked quickly, gathering what supplies and equipment they could carry. Zack modified his energy weapon, integrating one of the smaller crystals to give it more punch against the void stalkers. Vera, meanwhile, accessed ancient ethery databases, searching for any information that might help them on their desperate mission. As the first void stalkers reached the edge of the camp, Zack and Vera were ready. They burst out of the makeshift lab, Zack laying down cover fire with his enhanced weapon, while Vera used her innate connection to the planet's energy field to create barriers of shimmering force. They ran, dodging and weaving through the twisted landscape, the howls of the void stalkers echoing all around them. The nexus pulsed in the distance, a beacon of swirling energy that seemed to mock their efforts. "There," Vera shouted, pointing to a formation of crystalline structures ahead. "An old transit hub. If it still functions, we can use it to travel closer to the nexus." They sprinted for the hub, void stalkers snapping at their heels. Zack's weapon kept the creatures at bay, but for every one he drove back, 2 more took its place. They were being overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Just as it seemed they would be overtaken, they reached the transit hub. Vira's hands flew over the ancient controls, her voice rising in a string of musical syllables that Zack recognized as her native language. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then, With a surge of energy that made Zack's hair stand on end, the world around them blurred. When it snapped back into focus, they were standing on a plateau overlooking a vast, roiling sea of energy, the Nexus. Wow, Zack breathed, momentarily awestruck by the sight. That's something else. Vira nodded, her expression a mixture of reverence and fear. The heart of my world, the source of our greatest triumphs and our ultimate downfall. A chorus of unearthly shrieks reminded them that they weren't out of danger. The Void Stalkers were regrouping, drawn inexorably towards the Nexus and the interlopers who dared to challenge them. "What's the plan?" Zack asked, checking the charge on his weapon. Vira's eyes were fixed on the Nexus, her mind racing through possibilities. "We need to invert the resonance field," she said finally. "Create an anti-harmonic wave that will disrupt the Void Stalker's connection to our reality and seal the breach we've created." Zack nodded, trying to follow her explanation. "Okay, and how exactly do we do that?" Vira turned to him, her expression grave. "One of us will need to enter the Nexus itself to become a conduit for the anti-harmonic wave. It's likely to be fatal." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. Zack opened his mouth to volunteer, to insist that he be the one to make the sacrifice, but Vira placed a finger against his lips. "No, Zack," she said softly, "it must be me. My people created this problem. It's fitting that one of us should end it." "Vira, no," Zack protested, his heart clenching at the thought of losing her. "There has to be another way. We'll find it together, like we always do." Vira smiled, a sad, beautiful expression that made Zack's breath catch. "Oh, my dear Zack, you've shown me so much in our short time together. You've given me hope, something I thought I'd lost forever. But this is my destiny, my chance to redeem my people's mistakes." Before Zack could argue further, the air around them shimmered. The Void Stalkers had found them, their twisted forms coalescing from the very fabric of reality. "There's no time," Vera said urgently. "I need you to reconfigure the harmonic stabilizer to generate the anti-harmonic wave. Can you do that?" Zack nodded numbly, his mind rebelling against what was happening even as his hands moved to comply. "Vera, please," he said, his voice breaking. I love you." Vira's eyes shimmered with emotion. "And you, Zack Hawkins of Earth. In you, I found something I never thought possible, a future. Remember me and know that what I do for both our peoples." With that, she turned and ran towards the Nexus, her form beginning to glow with otherworldly energy. Zack watched her go, his heart shattering even as he worked frantically to reconfigure the stabilizer. As Vera reached the edge of the Nexus, she turned back one last time. Her eyes met Zack's across the distance, a lifetime of unspoken words passing between them in an instant. Then, with a grace that took Zack's breath away, she stepped into the swirling maelstrom of energy. The world exploded into light and sound. Zack activated the reconfigured stabilizer, sending the anti-harmonic wave pulsing out across the landscape. The Void Stalkers screamed, their forms twisting and dissolving as the wave passed through them. At the heart of it all, Zack could see Vira, her body transformed into pure energy, conducting the anti-harmonic wave and amplifying its effect. She was beautiful, terrible, a being of light and power that seared itself into Zack's memory. As the last of the Void Stalkers vanished, drawn back into whatever dark dimension had spawned them, Vira's form began to fade. Zack ran towards her, heedless of the danger, desperate to reach her before it was too late. "Vira," he cried, his voice lost in the roar of energy. "Come back to me." For a moment, just a moment, he thought he saw her smile. Then she was gone, dispersed into the vast energy field of the Nexus. Zack fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face as the world around him slowly returned to normal. The Nexus pulsed gently, its energies contained once more. The planet was saved, but at a cost that felt too high to bear. As the twin suns began to set, painting the alien sky in hues of gold and crimson, Zack sat alone on the plateau. The harmonic stabilizer hummed softly beside him, a reminder of all they had accomplished together. He didn't know what the future held. His ship was still damaged, and he was stranded on a world that, while no longer in danger of imminent destruction, was still alien and full of unknown perils. But as he watched the stars begin to emerge, twinkling in unfamiliar constellations, Zack felt a sense of purpose settling over him. Vira's sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. He would find a way to honor her memory, to bridge the gap between their peoples. And maybe, just maybe, he would find a way to bring her back. After all, in a universe vast enough to bring a human and an ethery together, anything was possible. As night fell on the alien world, Zack Hawkins stood up, squared his shoulders, and began to plan. His greatest adventure, he realized, was only just beginning. Echoes of eternity. The alien landscape shimmered under the light of 3 moons, casting an ethereal glow across the crystalline formations that dotted the horizon. Zack Hawkins stood at the edge of a precipice, his eyes fixed on the pulsing heart of the Nexus in the distance. Months had passed since Vira's sacrifice, but the ache in his chest felt as fresh as ever. "I will find a way," he whispered to the night, his voice carrying the weight of a promise. "Whatever it takes." Zack had spent every waking moment since that fateful day studying the ethery technology, pushing the boundaries of his understanding. The harmonic stabilizer, once a crude fusion of Earth and alien tech, had evolved into something far more sophisticated under his relentless tinkering. As he turned back to his makeshift camp, a flickering hologram caught his eye. It was a recording of Vira, captured during one of their early experiments. Her silver tendrils swayed as she explained some complex ethery concept, her eyes bright with enthusiasm. "The key to unlocking the Nexus's potential lies in understanding the quantum entanglement of its energy matrix," her voice echoed, sending a shiver down Zack's spine. He paused the recording, a familiar determination setting his jaw. "Quantum entanglement," he muttered. "Of course, why didn't I see it before?" With renewed vigor, Zack dove back into his work. Holographic displays sprang to life around him, filling the air with swirling equations and pulsing energy signatures. He manipulated the data with the ease of long practice, his mind racing with possibilities. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Zack sat back, his eyes wide with realization. "That's it," he breathed. "The Nexus isn't just an energy source. It's a bridge between realities." The implications were staggering. If he was right, the Nexus could be used to traverse not just space, but time and dimension. And if that was true, then Vera might not be lost after all. But before Zack could fully process his discovery, a low rumble shook the ground. He rushed outside, his heart pounding. The sky above the Nexus was churning, flashes of otherworldly light pulsing within the clouds. "No," Zack whispered, a cold dread settling in his stomach. "Not again." But this was different from the Void Stalker incursion. The energy signature was familiar, yet altered. As Zack watched, the air itself seemed to tear open, a rift in reality yawning wide above the Nexus. Through the rift came shapes, sleek and angular, descending from the sky with an otherworldly grace. Zack's breath caught in his throat as he recognized them for what they were, ethery ships. "Impossible," he muttered, even as hope bloomed in his chest. Had Vira's people returned? Had they somehow sensed the changes in the Nexus? As the ships drew closer, Zack could make out more details. They were clearly of ethery design, but there was something off about them. The elegant lines were marred by harsh, almost predatory additions. Weapons bristled from their hulls, far more than would be needed for simple exploration or defense. The lead ship touched down not far from Zack's position, its engines sending up clouds of purple dust. A hatch opened and figures emerged. They were ethery, but like the ships, they too seemed changed. Their once graceful forms were encased in sleek, menacing armor. Where Vira's eyes had shone with curiosity and warmth, these beings' gazes were cold and calculating. The leader, a tall ethery with pulsing red lines running across its armor, stepped forward. Its voice, when it spoke, was a harsh approximation of the musical tones Zack had grown to love in Vera. "Human," it said, the word dripping with disdain. "You do not belong here. This world is the property of the Etheri Dominion." Zack's mind reeled. Dominion? What had happened to virus people in the time they'd been gone? He raised his hands slowly, acutely aware of the weapons trained on him. "My name is Zack Hawkins," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "I'm a friend of the Etheri. I've been working to stabilize the Nexus, to undo the damage." Silence. The leader cut him off. "Your primitive meddling is of no concern to us. The Nexus will serve the glory of the Dominion, as all things must." Zack's eyes narrowed. This wasn't right. These weren't the people Vyra had described, the curious, peaceful race that had reached for the stars. Something had changed them, twisted them. "Listen," Zack tried again. "I don't know what's happened to your people, but this isn't the way. The Nexus is dangerous. If you try to harness its power without understanding it, you'll destroy everything, just like before." The leader's laugh was cold and mirthless. "You understand nothing, human. We have evolved beyond our former weaknesses. The Nexus will bow to our will, and with it, we will reshape the very fabric of reality." As the Etheri forces spread out, securing the area and setting up equipment around the Nexus, Zack's mind raced. He couldn't let them do this. Not only would it dishonor Vyra's sacrifice, but it could unleash devastation on a cosmic scale. But what could one human do against an army of technologically superior aliens? As if in answer to his unspoken question, the harmonic stabilizer in his camp began to pulse, its rhythm changing to match the fluctuations of the Nexus. An idea began to form in Zack's mind, dangerous and desperate. "You're making a mistake," he called out to the Etheri leader. "The Nexus isn't just an energy source, it's alive in a way. It responds to intention, to the will of those who interact with it. If you approach it with conquest in mind, it will resist. It might even destroy you." The leader paused, a flicker of uncertainty crossing its alien features. "Explain," it demanded. Zack took a deep breath, hoping his bluff would pay off. "I've spent months studying the Nexus, learning its rhythms. I can show you how to approach it safely, how to communicate with it rather than try to dominate it." For a long moment, the Etheri leader studied Zack, its cold eyes boring into him. Then it nodded sharply. "Very well, human. You will demonstrate this. Communication. But be warned, any treachery will result in your immediate termination." Zack nodded, his heart pounding. This was his chance, possibly his only chance, to set things right. As he was escorted to the Nexus, Zack's mind whirled with calculations and half-formed plans. The harmonic stabilizer was the key. If he could adjust its frequency just right, he might be able to use it to tap into the Nexus's power, to reach across the barriers of reality and time. And maybe, just maybe, to bring Vyra back. The Nexus loomed before them, its swirling energies more vibrant and chaotic than ever. Zack could feel its pull, like a siren song calling to something deep within him. He took a steadying breath, then turned to the Etheri leader. "I need my equipment," he said, gesturing to the harmonic stabilizer. "It's calibrated to interface with the Nexus safely." The leader nodded curtly, and one of its subordinates brought the device over. Zack's hands moved swiftly over the controls, making minute adjustments. Every motion was watched closely by the Etheri, but they couldn't know what he was really doing. "Okay," Zack said finally, his voice steady despite the fear and hope warring in his chest. "I'm going to initiate contact now. Whatever happens, don't interfere. The process is delicate." Before the Etheri could respond, Zack activated the stabilizer. A wave of energy pulsed out, intersecting with the Nexus in a dazzling display of light and color. The very air seemed to vibrate with power. Zack closed his eyes, focusing all his will, all his love and hope and desperation, into a single thought: Vyra. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the world exploded into chaos. The nexus flared with blinding intensity, tendrils of energy lashing out in all directions. The ethery soldiers were thrown back, their weapons and armor shorting out under the onslaught of raw power. And there, at the heart of the maelstrom, a figure began to take shape. Silvery tendrils, iridescent skin, eyes that held the wisdom of ages and the warmth of a summer day. Vera, Zack breathed, his voice choked with emotion. She turned to him, a smile of infinite tenderness on her face. "Oh, Zack," she said, her voice echoing with otherworldly resonance. "You clever, stubborn human. What have you done?" Before Zack could respond, the ethery leader staggered to its feet, its face contorted with rage. "What is this treachery?" it snarled. Vira's expression hardened as she took in the scene. "You," she said, her voice carrying the weight of judgment. "What have you done to our people? This is not the way of the ethery." The leader faltered, confusion and fear warring on its face. We evolved, became stronger." "No," Vira said sadly. "You lost your way, but it's not too late." She raised her hands, and the nexus responded, its energies swirling around her like a living thing. Zack watched in awe as Vera began to glow, her form shifting and growing until she towered over them all, a being of pure energy and infinite compassion. "Remember," her voice boomed, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. "Remember who you were, who you can be again." A wave of energy washed over the ethery, and Zack saw that armor begin to crack and fall away. The harsh lines of their faces softened, the coldness in their eyes replaced by confusion, then wonder. As the transformation swept through the ethery ranks, Vera turned to Zack. Her smile was radiant, filled with love and a hint of sorrow. "My dear Zack," she said softly, "you've done it. You've given our people a second chance, but now I must go. The Nexus needs a guardian, a bridge between worlds. That is to be my role now." Zack felt tears streaming down his face. "Vera, no, please. I just got you back." She reached out, her ethereal hand cupping his cheek. "I will always be with you, Zack. In here," she touched his heart, "and out there among the stars. Our love has transcended death itself. Carry it with you always." With a final radiant smile, Vera began to fade, merging with the energies of the Nexus. But as she disappeared, Zack felt something settle into place within him, a warmth and certainty that he knew would never leave him. As the light faded and the world slowly returned to normal, Zack found himself surrounded by confused but peaceful ethery. Their leader approached him, the arrogance gone from its bearing. "Human, Zack," it said hesitantly. "We owe you a great debt. You'd have restored us to ourselves. How can we ever repay you?" Zack looked out at the alien landscape, at the Nexus pulsing gently in the distance, and felt a smile tugging at his lips. "Well," he said, "I've got some ideas about that. How do you feel about building bridges between our peoples?" As the twin suns rose on a new day, Zack Hawkins stood at the threshold of a new adventure. With the restored ethery at his side and Vira's love in his heart, he knew that the greatest journey of his life was just beginning. The stars beckoned, and somewhere out there, across the vast tapestry of space and time, Vera was waiting. And Zack knew, with the certainty of a love that had defied death itself, that someday, somehow, they would be together again. Cosmic convergence. The once desolate world pulsed with new life, a vibrant fusion of human ingenuity and ethery wisdom. 5 years had passed since the dramatic events at the Nexus, and in that time, Zack Hawkins had become more than just an explorer. He was a bridge between worlds, a catalyst for a new era of interstellar cooperation. The sprawling complex before him was a testament to that collaboration. Sleek ethery architecture melded seamlessly with robust Earth engineering, creating a facility unlike any other in the known universe. This was the Nexus Institute, a place where the brightest minds from both civilizations came together to unlock the secrets of reality itself. Zack stood on a balcony overlooking the main atrium, his weathered explorer's uniform now adorned with symbols of both human and ethery authority. His eyes, though lined with the chaos of leadership, still held that spark of curiosity that had first brought him to this distant world. "Director Hawkins," a melodic voice called out. Zack turned to see Lyra, his ethery assistant, approaching with a holographic display hovering before her. "The latest data from the quantum entanglement experiments has arrived. I think you'll want to see this." Zack's heart quickened as he took in the scrolling figures and pulsing diagrams. "Is this accurate?" he asked, his voice hushed with awe. "Have we actually achieved stable multi-dimensional viewing?" Lyra's tendrils rippled with excitement, a gesture Zack had come to recognize as the ethery equivalent of a grin. "Indeed we have. For the first time, we're able to observe parallel realities without disrupting the quantum field. The implications are, well, universe-altering." Zack let out a low whistle. This was the breakthrough they'd been working towards for years. The ability to peer into other dimensions, to study the infinite variations of reality. It opened up possibilities that boggled the mind. But even as his scientific mind raced with the potential applications, another part of him, the part that still ached for Vira, whispered of a more personal use for this technology. As if sensing his thoughts, Lyra's expression softened. "There's more," she said gently. "We've detected an anomaly in one of the parallel dimensions, an energy signature that matches, well, it matches the records we have of Vira's unique frequency." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Zack gripped the railing, his knuckles turning white. "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" he asked, hardly daring to hope. Lyra nodded sullenly. "It's possible, Director. We may have found a reality where Vira still exists." The next few hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. The Nexus Institute's top minds were assembled, contingency plans were drawn up, and ethical debates raged. The ability to view parallel realities was one thing, but the possibility of reaching out to them, of potentially extracting someone from another dimension, it was uncharted territory, fraught with risks. As the arguments swirled around him, Zack found himself drawn to the heart of the facility, to the chamber that housed their greatest achievement, the Cosmic Confluence Engine. This marvel of science and engineering, built around a shard of the original Nexus, was what allowed them to peer into the quantum foam of reality. He placed a hand on the thrumming surface of the machine, feeling the power coursing through it. Somewhere, in the infinite expanse of the multiverse, Vera was out there. The woman he loved, the being who had sacrificed everything to save not one, but two civilizations. "I made you a promise," Zack whispered. "Whatever it takes, remember." A soft chime interrupted his reverie. The chamber's air spoke in soothing tones. "Director Hawkins, the Accord Council is assembled and awaiting your decision." Zack took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. This was it, the moment that would determine not just his fate, but potentially the fate of multiple realities. The Accord Council chamber was a perfect circle, representing the unity of human and ethery cooperation. Delegates from both species sat in tiered rows, their faces a mix of anticipation and concern. At the center stood a holographic projection of the detected anomaly, a swirling vortex of energy that pulsed with a rhythm Zack recognized in his very soul. As Zack took his place at the podium, a hush fell over the assembly. He looked out at the faces before him, human, ethery, and even a few representatives from other alien races that had joined their coalition. Each one looked to him for leadership, for the wisdom to navigate this unprecedented situation. "Members of the Accord," Zack began, his voice steady despite the turmoil in his heart. "We stand at a crossroads of cosmic proportions. The power to peer into parallel realities is already reshaping our understanding of the universe. But now we face a decision that will test not just our scientific prowess, but our ethics, our compassion, and our very conception of what it means to exist." He gestured to the swirling anomaly. "We have detected what we believe to be the energy signature of Vera, the ethery hero who sacrificed herself to save our world and restore balance to the Nexus. In a parallel reality, she may still live." A murmur ran through the crowd. Zack held up a hand for silence before continuing. The temptation to reach out, to try and bring her back, is overwhelming. Speaking personally, there is nothing I want more in all the cosmos, but we must consider the ramifications. What right do we have to interfere in another reality? What unforeseen consequences might our actions have? The chamber erupted in debate. Some argued passionately for the attempt, citing the debt they owed to Vera and the potential knowledge she could bring. Others warned of the dangers, of cosmic laws they might be breaking, of the possibility of catastrophic interdimensional collapse. As the arguments raged, Zack felt a strange calm settle over him. He realized that, deep down, he had already made his decision. He raised his hands, calling for quiet. "I understand the fears and the hopes expressed here today," he said. "Both are valid. Both come from a place of care for our people and our universe. But I am reminded of something Viro once told me, in those early days when we first encountered the Nexus." Zack's voice took on a resonant quality, filling the chamber with a sense of gravity and purpose. She said, "The universe is not a cold, uncaring void. It is a tapestry of connections, of choices and consequences that ripple across the cosmos. Every action we take, every life we touch, sends echoes through eternity." He paused, letting the words sink in. "We have been given an unprecedented opportunity, not just to potentially save a hero, but to reach across the boundaries of reality itself, to prove that love, that connection, that the very essence of who we are is not limited by the constraints of a single universe." Zack's eyes blazed with determination. "I propose that we attempt contact, not with the goal of extraction, but of communication. Let us send a message across the dimensions, a beacon of hope and unity. If Vera is out there, let us give her the choice. And in doing so, let us take the first step towards a grander vision, a multiversal alliance of sentient beings, united in our quest for knowledge and understanding." The chamber was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, a sound began to build. It started as a low hum from the ethery delegates, growing in volume and complexity. The humans joined in with applause, and soon the entire council was on its feet, voices raised in a chorus of approval. As the ovation washed over him, Zack felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Whatever came next, they would face it together as a united cosmos. The preparations for the interdimensional contact attempt were intense. Every variable had to be accounted for, every safety measure triple-checked. The cosmic confluence engine was pushed to its limits, its core pulsing with barely contained power. Zack stood at the control center, surrounded by the finest scientific minds of two civilizations. Holographic displays flickered with complex equations and real-time quantum fluctuations. The air thrummed with tension and possibility. "All systems a go," Director Lyra reported, her tendrils rippling with a mix of excitement and nervous energy. "We're ready to initiate the quantum bridge on your mark." Zack took a deep breath, his hand hovering over the activation switch. This was it, the moment that could change everything. Initiating quantum bridge in 3, 2, 1. He pressed the switch. For a heartbeat, nothing seemed to happen. Then, with a sound like reality itself tearing at the seams, a swirling vortex of energy burst into existence before them. Gasps and murmurs of awe filled the chamber. The vortex pulsed with colors that shouldn't exist, its edges shifting and warping in ways that hurt the eye to look at directly. At its heart, indistinct shapes moved and shifted, tantalizing glimpses of another world. Quantum stability holding at 89%, one of the technicians called out. "Bridge is stable, but we don't know how long it will last." Zack stepped forward, his heart pounding. This close to the vortex, he could feel its pull, not just physically but on some deeper, more fundamental level. It was as if every atom in his body resonated with the cosmic energies swirling before him. "Vira," he called out, his voice carried on waves of carefully modulated quantum particles. "Vera, if you're out there, if you can hear me, we found you." For a long, agonizing moment, There was no response. The vortex continued to swirl, maddeningly opaque. Then, like a radio slowly tuning into a distant station, a voice began to emerge from the quantum static. "Zach, is that really you?" The sound of Vira's voice, distorted but unmistakable, sent a jolt through Zach's entire being. Tears sprang to his eyes as a welter of emotions. Joy, relief, love, threatened to overwhelm him. Yes, it's me," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "We did it, Vira. We found a way to reach across realities. Are you all right?" Her response came clearer this time, tinged with a mixture of awe and amusement. I'm fine. More than fine. Oh, Zach, if you could see what I've seen, what I've become." As Vera spoke, the vortex began to clear. The swirling energies coalesced into a form that was at once familiar and utterly alien. It was Vira, but not as Zach had known her. Her body seemed to be composed of pure energy, shifting and flowing like liquid starlight. Her eyes, when they met his, contained the depth of galaxies. "I am one with the Nexus now," she said, her voice resonating on multiple levels of reality. "Not just of our world, but of all worlds. I see the connections between all things, the infinite possibilities of existence." Zach stood transfixed, barely aware of the gasps and murmurs from the team behind him. "Vera, we've been searching for so long. We thought maybe we could bring you back." Vira's luminous form rippled with what might have been laughter. "Oh, my dear Zach, always trying to push the boundaries of what's possible. But I cannot come back, not in the way you're thinking. My journey now lies between the realities, helping to maintain the cosmic balance." Though her words brought a pang of sorrow, Zach found himself smiling. This was Vera as she was always meant to be, free, powerful, at the heart of the mysteries they had only begun to unravel. "But," Vira continued, her tone warming, "that doesn't mean this has to be goodbye. You've opened a door, Zach, a connection between our realities. Perhaps in time, we can find a way to strengthen it, to allow for more substantial communication." The implications of her words sent a thrill of excitement through the assembled scientists. The potential for knowledge exchange, for a true multiversal network of information and cooperation, was staggering. Zach stepped closer to the vortex, his hand outstretched. "Whatever it takes," he said, echoing the promise he had made so long ago. "We'll find a way." Vira's form reached out as well, her energy-based fingers intertwining with his physical ones. The sensation was indescribable, like touching the heart of a star, like feeling the turn of the cosmos itself. Together, Vera said, her voice filled with love and infinite possibility. "Across all realities, we'll find a way." As human and ethery scientists scrambled to stabilize and study the interdimensional connection, as delegates from a dozen worlds began drafting plans for a new era of multiversal cooperation, Zach and Vira remained linked, a bridge between worlds, a testament to the power of love and the endless wonders of the cosmos. The story of the human explorer and the ethery guardian was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. For in opening this door between realities, they had taken the first step on a journey that would reshape the very fabric of existence itself. As the twin suns of the alien worlds set on this historic day, casting the Nexus Institute in hues of gold and violet, Zach Hawkins looked out at the assembled beings, human, ethery, and a growing number of other alien races drawn by the promise of this new cosmic age. He saw in their faces the same wonder, the same thirst for knowledge and connection that had first driven him to the stars. With Vira's energy still thrumming through him, a link across realities that defied scientific explanation, Zach knew that the greatest adventure of all was just beginning. The universe, no, the multiverse, was vast and full of mysteries, but together, united by bonds of friendship, love, and shared purpose, there was nothing they couldn't achieve. As night fell and the first stars began to twinkle in the alien sky, Zach smiled. The future was unwritten, full of challenges and marvels beyond imagination, and he couldn't wait to explore it, hand in hand with Vira, one step at a time. The end, or perhaps just the beginning.